I want my money back.
Hi everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name's Christina and I'm the events coordinator here at Books Are Magic. Before we get started, I wanted to point out some logistics for how tonight's going to go. We'll be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of the event, so start thinking of questions to ask now. After the talk tonight, Laura will be signing and personalizing books at the desk near where you checked in. We also have additional books available to purchase from my colleague at the register. If you're joining us virtually on the live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of the Daydreams online using the link in the live stream description. It's my pleasure to introduce you tonight to The Daydreams, a deliciously entertaining novel about the stars of a popular teen show from the early 2000s and the reunion special 13 years after their scandalous flameout that will either be their last chance at redemption or destroy them all for good. Will this reunion be a chance to make things right, or will it be the biggest mess the world has ever seen? No matter what, the ratings will be wild. Laura Hankin is the author of Happy and You Know It and A Special Place for Women. Her musical comedy has been featured in publications like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and she's developing projects for film and TV. She lives in Washington, D.C., where she once fell off a treadmill twice in one day. As I mentioned earlier, Laura will be joined in conversation tonight by Becca Freeman. Becca Freeman is the co-host of the popular books and lifestyle podcast Bad on Paper and the co-creator of Rom-Com Pods. She's a graduate of Boston College. Becca currently lives in Brooklyn, where she enthusiastically celebrates Christmas every year. Let's all give a very warm welcome to Laura and Becca.
How's it going, everybody? Good. Oh, just scooching on up here. It's so amazing to see you all and to be here. And we're gonna play some games and have some convo.
Oh yeah, Laura's not a regular author. She's a cool author. So she has games, she has prizes. Like, you are in for a treat.
I want everyone to have a good time. There's an after party also afterwards with pizza and cookies. But we thought to start out that maybe I would do a little reading from the book.
Woo.
Thank you. So I'm trying to think of what people need to know before I read this. These stars are maybe going to come back for a reunion. One of them is a corporate lawyer in DC who fled Hollywood entirely, and she does not want to come back. And so the one who is the cautionary tale train wreck has come to DC and taken her to a shitty karaoke bar to try to convince her. So, and her name is Summer. Downing the rest of her drink, Summer hops to her feet, spine lengthening. Then, she strides over to the microphone as the Whitney Houston ends, brushing past a couple of women studying the booklet of songs. "Hey," says one of the women at the song booklet, "we're supposed to go next." She cuts herself off as she registers Summer's face. "Oh my God. Is it you?" She wobbles a little bit, her voice turning to a squeak. "Is it really?" Summer winks at her. "Can you put in a new kind of wish?" "Obviously." She elbows the woman next to her. "Find it." The second woman flips through the book furiously for the code, then punches it into the karaoke machine. Recognition hits the patrons in waves as the bouncy chords to the song begin, and Summer tosses her hair, ready to sing one of her more famous Daydreams solos. A scream rings out from one corner of the bar. People begin to flock to the lip of the little stage, some of them clasping hands. "What?" a guy standing in front of me asks the woman next to him. "What's going on? I don't get it." Yeah, you know it's true," Summer begins to sing. "Something has changed ever since I met you." Our lyrics did not win any awards. "Who is she?" that same guy asks his companion. "It's Summer Wright," she hisses back, before calling out to the stage, "My queen!" Summer waves at her, then swivels her hips, closing her eyes as she continues. Her pure warble is raspier now, but there's something magnetic in her performance all the same. She can still hold a crowd in the palm of her hand, although not necessarily because of the sheer force of her talent. Maybe it's like watching a train wreck, or the awareness that a train wreck could be coming, because this particular train has a habit of speeding out of control. Who? The guy says, and his companion lets out an annoyed grunt. Squeaky clean TV star from the Daydreams? He shakes his head. She, ruined the live finale? Another head shake. Her voice grows higher pitched with incredulity. Nipplegate? She had a meltdown, another woman says, leaning in, and we never got closure. It was like, the first woman continues, imagine that The Office unexpectedly ended right before Jim and Pam kissed, and you just had to live without ever seeing it. I think I'd be fine with that, the guy says. Okay, well, fuck off, Todd, the first woman says, and turns back to Summer. That's a little taste.
So we can all tell this is a very fun book, but should we start off with a game to make sure everyone knows that this is going to be fun? This isn't a regular author talk where people are going to ask you about your inspiration.
No way.
Laura suggested we start off with a game of early 2000s Fuck, Marry, Kill. I don't know if I can swear on this book.
Yeah, is that okay to swear? We could also say Bone, Mary, Berry, which is actually the name of Becca's scripted podcast, which is very fun, and you should all check it out.
Oh, thank you.
Also, her novel is coming out in September, The Christmas Orphans Club.
Oh, thank you. My intro just made it sound like I really like Christmas. Which I do.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a non sequitur. So wait, I have a FMK to avoid swearing.
Yeah.
For you.
Okay.
So FMK, going out tops, butterfly clips, Steve Madden platforms.
Okay, I think I'm gonna F the going out top, because it's literally there for a good time, right?
Right.
On a Saturday night. Steve Madden platforms is what you said?
Uh-huh.
I think I'm gonna kill him. I'm sorry. I'm old and I can't wear anything but flat shoes anymore. And I think I'm gonna marry butterfly clips because they're reliable. You can wear them all the time. You know.
Where are you registered?
Claire's? Yeah, Claire's. Yeah, the most expensive thing on the registry is $12. All right, an FMK for you.
Okay.
This is winners of the MTV Movie Award for Best Kiss.
I'm ready.
Okay, we've got Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst kissing upside down in the rain in Spider-Man. I love all these knowing nods. We've got Sarah Michelle Gellar and Selma Blair kissing in Cruel Intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling kissing in the rain in The Notebook. Oh.
I can tell you immediately that my Mary is going to be Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling in the rain. What's a more iconic, forever, romantic kind of kiss? That's what you want in a marriage.
Yeah, that's commitment.
I don't know if I saw Spider-Man. Oh. I lost a crowd already. So I'm going to kill Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst kissing upside down.
Okay, that's fine.
Which leaves me, and this feels right, that I'm going to have Selma Blair and Sarah Michelle Gellar in Cruel Intentions. That feels right to me.
That's a good kiss, yeah.
Okay. Okay, now for you, I have one Amanda Bynes movies. What a Girl Wants.
Okay.
Easy A. She's the Man.
I hope everyone has their own answers in their head when they're developing. I think I'm gonna marry Easy A, because I could watch that.
It's Stanley Tucci's hottest role.
Oh, yeah,
It's true.
Probably the hottest dad on screen. Yeah. I think. Okay, I hate to admit this. I have not rewatched What a Girl Wants in years, and I haven't necessarily felt a hole in my life.
Okay.
So maybe I kill it.
Oh, poor Colin Firth, your dad.
I
How did they get him to do
know.
that movie?
I don't know, but it kind of makes me like him even more. And I think I'm gonna She's the Man.
Oh, great.
Because it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, last one for you is like
Okay.
early 2000s reality-ish
Okay,
or
okay.
TV shows, non-scripted TV shows. TRL,
Mm-hmm.
early American Idol, like Kelly Clarkson, Justin Guarini, and Joe Millionaire.
I'll start with Mary again. I'm gonna marry TRL. I think we are already married. I watched every afternoon in middle school. I don't think we ever got that annulled. So just keep on keeping on.
It's like your high school sweetheart.
It's
but,
my high school sweetheart, second chance romance. I've never seen Joe Millionaire. By the crowd reaction, it seems like I'm missing out. But I guess I'll kill it, and I guess that leaves me with effing early American Idol.
Yeah. Great.
Which is weird, but sure.
It is weird. Yeah, I personally might have married early American Idol because he gave us Kelly Clarkson. and,
Sure,
like,
sure.
But I respect your choices.
It's gonna be a weird orgy.
Yeah. It is.
Before we get into the formal questions, I think Laura has another of her stunning dress that she's going to give away
Yes.
to an audience member.
Yeah, I ordered 2 sizes of it because I wasn't sure what was going to fit. Also, I got way more pregnant since first trying this on. So that's why I'm wearing a whole outfit underneath it because otherwise it's going to be too inappropriate. But if anybody wants this, you should participate in this game. If you want to wear it yourself, give it to a friend, just put it on your wall and stare at it. I don't know.
And honestly, earn our eternal affection if you put it on right now.
Oh,
For your outfit.
Yes. So it's just going to be a very brief round of Name That Tune. I'm going to just start saying the lyrics to an early 2000s song. First person who can identify it, shout it out, and you win the dress. 5 years from now, she sits at home, feeding the baby. Who was the first person? Was it Hannah? Yeah, it was. Congratulations. Hannah Orenstein, everybody.
Anna Ornstein, who is wearing a juicy rhinestone tube top, by the way, in the third row.
Thank you for
A+
that.
for adherence to theme. A+. So I guess, maybe people do want to hear a little bit more about this book and not
Okay.
just hear us play games. But before we get started, can you give us the spoiler-free preview of what this book is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is about the stars of an early 2000s teen TV show who, at the height of their fame, implode spectacularly on live TV. And now it is 13 years later. They've all gone in very different directions. As mentioned, one fled Hollywood and is a lawyer in DC. We've got the movie star, who happens to be the only man in the original crew. We've got the train wreck, and we've got the bored athlete's wife. And the network demands that they come back for a reunion special. And so, reluctantly or not reluctantly, they do. And it has the potential to give them the redemption that they've been craving, or to completely destroy them.
So why did you decide to write this book? What called to you about this?
I would say that probably a lot of us, I got really into early 2000s nostalgia over the past few years, and particularly, pandemic was so sad, obviously, and it seemed so comforting. But, as I was watching all the old movies and TV shows and listening to the songs, of course I was noticing that so many of the young shining starlets of the time had really struggled in the years since. I think this was also around the time of the Free Britney movement starting to gain more traction. So I was really interested in exploring all of those dynamics. And then also just asking okay, if we are now acknowledging that we perhaps treated these young women unfairly, what do we do about it moving forward? It's not enough to just be we were wrong, we're so much better now, because are we? And then I've always just been so fascinated by reunion dynamics too. I don't know, when some people succeed and some people don't, and they were so important to each other and they haven't spoken for years. It seemed like such a dramatic, fun setting.
Oh, it's a recipe for lots of fun in this book.
Mm-hmm.
What was the research process like? I'm just imagining you, well, definitely in butterfly clips, like bopping around your apartment to like boy bands, like a lot of NSYNC, Britney, watching like Crossroads and calling it work. Like what was the research?
I mean, honestly, that was exactly it. Also, Crossroads, do you know that was directed by Shonda Rhimes?
I do.
Right? Yeah.
She also wrote The Princess Diaries, the movie.
What? Yeah. Whoa. What a career that woman has. Seriously. But yes, basically I was listening to all the music at the time. I like made my husband watch High School Musical with me because I was like, it's work, Dave. But on the less fun end of it all, I was like reading a lot of old interviews from the time, and like watching old paparazzi videos and trying to read some of the old Perez Hilton blogs when I could stomach them.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was rough. So that part was a little soul crushing. Oh, and then I also want to mention that one of the most helpful things that I listened to was Jessica Simpson's audiobook.
Oh my god,
memoir.
incredible.
Yeah. Open book. She narrates it, obviously.
She's so much more honest than she needs to be. Like, it's like nobody asked you if you had an emotional affair with Johnny Knoxville. Like, nobody was talking about that, Jessica.
Yeah, but thank you for taking it upon yourself to tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love, she's so like smart and thoughtful about her life. And then she also just gives you like the dishiest gossip about every early 2000s heartthrob that she ever met. Because of course they all were like, hey, Jessica. Yeah. So that was important.
So, not to judge an author by their outfit.
Oh, yes.
But do you have a most formative early 2000s pop culture moment that, it feels like for a lot of people in this book, that was the failed finale of this show. Mm-hmm. What was your formative pop culture moment?
Okay, so there are like a couple that I'm thinking about. I don't know, for some reason Britney dancing with the snake really stays with me. Yeah, and I think it was in part because, people like to dismiss her as like, oh, she's not serious. And then she was like, well, screw you, I can dance with a snake around my shoulders. Can you do that?
Also her with the thong over the pants in the Slave For You music video.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The outfit choices were impeccable.
I should have worn that.
Becca. Next time. I'll write a whole other early 2000s pop culture book.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think also though, just in terms of moments that were burned into my brain, the Super Bowl with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. Nipplegate, exactly. Yeah. I think that was like this moment of being like, what just happened? And I'm a little bit scandalized. But then also, I don't know, because our attention spans weren't all fragmented yet, it was like, it was in the news it felt like months or something afterwards. And it was this example of how a woman, in one moment, all of her talent and everything she worked so hard, to do, could just be taken away and she'd be like known for, exposing herself to America. So, and then, okay, I'll do one more because I feel like that's a downer to end on. So I'll tell you that my really embarrassing one, this is maybe more the 90s, but I remember there was some video on TV. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
Okay. It was like either the Titanic music video or some featurette on Titanic. But there was a shot of like the hand on the window in the car. I've seen people nod knowingly. And that was my first moment where I was like, that's what people mean when they talk about sex. Yeah.
I love this.
Do you have one?
So we were talking on the phone last week to prep for this, and I think this is also the late 90s, but does anyone else remember in Dawson's Creek when Joey sings On My Own at that talent show? Oh, that has stuck with me. That has stuck with me in a big way.
Yeah, that's your personality.
For better, for worse. So So everyone in the Daydreams in this fictional TV show kind of has an archetype. I'm curious, if you were on a high school TV show, what would your archetype be?
I feel like back in high school, I would have been the theater nerd girl.
Okay.
You know, the one who was always showing up at the tables being like, have you auditioned for the spring musicale yet? Yeah. But now that I'm an adult, I don't know. I guess I'd maybe...
You'd be like Andrea Zuckerman, who's like way too old to be there.
Yeah. What about you?
So in high school, I moved halfway through high school. So I think I would be the mysterious new girl.
Oh, yeah.
Here to stir trouble.
Right. Is she, like, do you want to be her friend? Is she going to stab you in the back? What dark secrets did she leave behind at her last school?
Who knows? So in this book, Kat is our narrator, but Kat is not the star of the Daydream. She's kind of on the outside. And I'm curious, why did you choose to make her your narrator, and was she always the narrator?
Yeah, she was always the narrator, actually. I found a notebook the other day from just walking around in the first bits that I'd ever written down from this book, and it just had the sentence of like, we all had our roles and I was the bitch. And that's like still in many ways the first line of the book. She played the mean girl. And I think the reason that I wanted Kat to be the narrator rather than Summer, who was like America's sweetheart, the girl next door, the one that everyone was obsessed with, or Noah, who was her romantic counterpart. I felt like we all know what it's like to be kind of obsessed with those people, and I wanted Kat to be our way in as an audience surrogate, because even though she was in the action, she was also kind of obsessed with them and trying to figure out like what was really going on with them. And I felt like that would keep the tension high and help with the mystery of the book if we at least were starting out with her and then maybe figuring things out more as we go along. No spoilers, but... Yeah.
Well, it's also so interesting because she goes on to be a corporate lawyer and gets called up from the bench to star in this reunion, and she's like an Ann Taylor suit wearing like regular lady, and it's like, hey, you want to come back and sing and dance on TV?
Yeah, I really liked thinking about her frantically trying to prepare in the month in between, like getting this notice and going and just like signing up for, I'm thinking about the dance classes that you can take in DC on like ClassPass or whatever, just like her in a tap class with a bunch of old ladies. Yeah.
Or needing to explain this to your boss, which is a scene that happens in the book.
Right. And the boss is like, you want to take time off not for maternity leave, but to be in a singing, dancing TV show?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So Summer, who is the star in the show when it originally airs, has kind of a tough time of it after the show. And I'm curious, do you think that stars coming up have it easier now or back then in the time of the book, which is 2002 to 2005?
That's a really good question. I think the pressures are just super different because social media has changed the game so much.
It's like Who's Being Mean to You, then it was Perez Hilton, and now it's just like a swarm of people who get an opinion on Instagram.
Yeah, and could potentially make a TikTok about, you know, how awful you are that blows up. But also at the same time, I think with social media, those stars can control, or at least attempt to control their own narratives a little bit more, right? Whereas back in the day, you had to place an interview somewhere. They can just put a post up immediately. And also I feel like there was this thing in the early 2000s that has hopefully gone away a little bit, but it was that like totally impossible dual pressure of like, you are a young woman, be both a pure virgin with a purity ring and also somehow incredibly sexy and available seeming to all the men. Yeah, and I don't know that I see that quite as, or at least purity ring culture seems to have kind of gone away. But at the same time, you know, I think so many of the young women coming up now are having a really hard time of it too and are going to have their own trauma to deal with in 10 years.
I'll look forward to reading that book in 10 years.
Yeah.
Get started. Take notes.
Okay, well.
So when we talked about your research, you did not mention that you were a theater minor in college. And I'm curious, did you ever try to make it as an actress?
I did. Yes.
Are there any
My-
choice stories?
My friend who did some of this with me is laughing. So after college I moved to New York and was auditioning and then started writing on the side. But in college, when I was 18, there was an open call for Spring Awakening. I think at least 2 people in this audience came with me to that. We just took the train in from college and sat on the street for hours and then went in and sang a little bit. This was for replacements. So at this point in time, the show was running. Everybody was obsessed with Leah Michele and Jonathan Groff and all the sex of it. And I ended up getting called back a few times for Leah Michelle's role.
Did you get to chemistry test with Jonathan Groff?
No. Oh my God. If I had, that would be all I ever talked about. You would know that.
It would be your Twitter bio would be once chemistry test with Jonathan Groff first, and then author of the Daydreams.
Yeah. I would take the treadmill story out of my bio and put Jonathan Groff in there.
For sure.
But the thing that really sticks with me is that I had to sign a form saying that I was over 18 and I was willing to show my breasts on stage every night in front of thousands of people and simulate graphic sex, and I was like, yes. I want to be famous. I believe that fame is good. I'll do it. And then I bombed the callback and didn't get it, but I think now I'm glad that I had more of a chance to make my mistakes in private and not literally expose myself in that way to so many people. Yeah.
Fair.
But I think writing the book, I was like, what if it had gone differently? And put a little bit of that into the characters.
So I want to turn a little bit and talk about your writing process. This is the 4th book.
Yeah. There's
you have a kind of first book.
There's a secret first book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends how you count. So it's either the 3rd or 4th book. And this book is really different than your last book, which was kind of had a suspensey element to it. How is this one different? Was it easier, harder, better, worse?
I think that the overall plot of this one came more easily to me. It just made a little bit more sense as I was thinking it all out. But I think my first draft of my previous one was much stronger, and the first draft of this one was kind of trash. Not trash, I shouldn't say that, but I had to do a lot of work in between the first draft and the second draft. I think I probably rewrote almost a third of it, because I just really had to figure out who these characters were, and part of it was also just that I knew that this book could be the best one that I'd written yet, at least in my mind. And so I just felt a lot of pressure to get it right.
Sure.
In that way, yeah.
Sure. So I have 2 more questions for Laura, but everyone start percolating because it's almost your turn to ask questions. And don't leave me hanging, or we will be very disappointed. We will take back that dress, Hannah Orenstein.
Yeah.
So this book deals with the reboot, or the reunion, I guess, of a popular OO's TV show. What show would you want to see have a reunion?
Okay. I feel it's always a little bit of a be careful what you wish for situation, but I would be interested in the OC having a reunion.
A reunion or a reboot?
Well, okay, maybe a reboot, but all the original stars have to come back and play older versions of themselves.
Okay.
And Adam Brody plays a very large role.
Sure.
He's on screen a lot. But I don't know. I think it would be interesting. Misha Barton has had a hard time since, and whereas Ben McKenzie has kind of gone on to
Is it a police procedural, I think?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He also spends a lot of time being crypto is a scam. I think he wrote a book about crypto.
Coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it would be fun to get him back on more TV screens so he could talk about crypto. He could have a storyline about crypto.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say the OC. Do you have one?
Okay, so I think Gossip Girl has obviously been rebooted somewhat poorly in my opinion. But I think a reunion of the original Gossip Girl would be so interesting because you have like Blake Lively and Penn Badgley who have gone on to be like very big stars, and then you have everyone else who hasn't. And like I think it would be very interesting.
I would watch that for
I
sure.
know. I started rewatching it for research for a book that I'm writing right now recently, and I had the realization that I'm now closer in age to the parents than the kids, and it made me feel real icky.
This is how I feel when I watch Gilmore Girls. I'm like,
yeah. You're like, oh, I'm Lorelai now.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, Max Medina. Yeah.
So my last question for you, this book obviously centers around a TV show, so I feel like I can't let you get away without giving us some fantasy casting for these characters. So if this were going to turn into its own TV show, who do you think would play the 4 Daydreams, Kat, Summer, Liana, and Noah?
It's funny because you actually posted something about like people asking you about your book, fantasy casting, and how you want to be careful about not skewing people's perspectives of who the characters are. And I was like, that's so smart. So I want to be careful about not skewing people's perspectives of who the characters are. But if I had to pick, I can make very long lists for a lot of these characters. But I think for Kat, the corporate lawyer, Selena Gomez could do a very good job.
Oh, that's not who I was picturing.
Really? Who were you picturing?
I was picturing Anna Kendrick.
I mean, she'd be amazing too.
Like, she has like a little bit of snarkiness to her that, she would be like, ugh, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
She can also sing.
Yeah. Well, this is you have to find people who can sing. Ideally, you have to find people who can play 30s, but also maybe the younger versions of themselves. Because, like, I'm going to go off on a whole thing now. I feel like when you're casting younger and older versions of people, there are, like, age ranges where it makes sense, right? Like, the Yellow Jackets one totally makes sense. But I don't know if people change that much in 12, 13 years. They have, like, whole entirely different actors. Anyway, that's not the point of the question. I think for Summer, I also have a long list of people, but Amanda Seyfried, I think, could do a really good job. Yeah, got that sort of ethereal quality, but is such a good actress.
Okay.
And can sing. I think Keke Palmer would be the perfect Liana. And I think he's probably too old for it now, but like Ryan Gosling's vibe for Noah.
I was picturing like Justin Hartley, who's also too old.
Is he the This Is Us
Yeah,
guy?
he's the This Is Us guy.
I can see that too.
Yeah.
But they're
type of
too
guy.
old.
I know, it would be like a weird age range in that cast.
Yeah. Justin Hartley and Keke Palmer pretending to be the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lend something interesting.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of my questions. Who in the audience has a question? Just raise your hand and I'll... Right here in the front.
If you had to pick one of your books to do a sequel for, what would that book be?
Oh wait, Laura, I have to repeat it for our friends on YouTube.
Oh, yes.
No, for our friends on YouTube. Not you were loud enough. You were great. You did amazing.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one of your books to write a sequel, what would it be?
I actually think Happy and You Know It, probably. I think having written it from the perspective, so for anyone who doesn't know, it's about a playgroup musician who like gets sucked into this group of wealthy moms and all of their secrets. And I was working as a playgroup musician at the time that I wrote it. So I was like writing it from her perspective, and then the moms kept becoming bigger characters. And I think now that I'm going to have a child, I'm like, oh, it would be interesting to revisit those characters in that world, now that I actually know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I agree. I saw another hand up. Oh, right here.
If you were going to implode on live TV, what would you do?
So for our YouTube friends, if Laura was going to implode on live TV, what would she do?
Am I intentionally imploding? Like I'm trying to make a fuss, or like something happens and it implodes?
Something happens. What's most likely to happen to you?
I probably like fart really loudly and get embarrassed. I don't know. That's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah. What would you do?
I don't know. I mean, I'd probably curse on Disney, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's not allowed.
No, it's definitely not.
But I don't think that's, it's not Nipplegate.
Right.
Who else has a question? And back here?
Yeah, I feel like we know how to describe like the 80s and the 90s, like the generation, the 70s. Like even thinking a lot about the early 2000s, what do you think is like the essence of that decade now that we've got some distance from it?
So for our YouTube friends, this person asked, it feels like we know how to describe the 80s and 90s and even the 70s. What do you think is kind of like the distillation of the OOs?
I mean, is it weird to say it's like the chaste but horny generation? Like going back to what I was talking about before, there were these like two competing forces at play. Like there was so much morality and concern for the children, right? And like decency standards and everything. But at the same time, I think the limit was being pushed in a way that it hadn't necessarily been before. So horny but chaste generation is not quite as catchy as the me generation. But what do you?
Well, I don't have as eloquent a summary, but you know what I feel like is really emblematic of the OOs?
What?
Those Got Milk ads with every celebrity with a milk mustache.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that now?
No. Well, I think we're too like fragmented now.
Right, but it was like the Olsen twins were just shilling milk. Can you imagine?
Yeah, Big Milk really got its claws into everybody at that point in time.
Truly, it was like a status symbol. It was like, I want to be called up by Big Milk.
Yeah. Yeah, those poor celebrities who were just like staring at their landlines
I
waiting.
know. Today, if Big Milk called, you'd be like, oh, send it to voicemail.
Yeah. You know, Big Oat Milk on the other hand, maybe, but
Sure.
yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Hannah?
If you could send this book to one celebrity from that time, or maybe you have, I don't know, which celebrity would it be and what do you hope they would take away from it?
Oh, such a great question. So
Yeah.
she was asked if she could send this book to one celebrity, who would it be and what do you hope they would take away from it?
I feel like I want to say 10 celebrities, but to pick one, maybe Lindsay Lohan. Yeah, and because I know she's been starting to have a comeback, and I guess I'd want her to take away like, yeah, keep going, maybe it's possible. Redemption is good, and not to spoil the ending of this book, maybe it's really depressing.
Who can say?
Yeah.
Who can say? And back there?
I was actually going to ask a question about Lindsay Lohan, but I won't. But
Oh.
I'm curious, can you just share another fun research rabbit hole you went down for probably far too many hours than you should have?
Yeah.
This person asked if Laura can share another research rabbit hole that she went down for far too many hours.
Okay, I really spent a lot of time watching news anchors interview Britney Spears. It feels like there was a period of time where she was on like respected nightly news programs, and they kept trying to either make her feel horrible, like Diane Sawyer was like, "Do you think you're a bad person?" I don't know. I don't think
answer that.
I don't think she actually said that, but that was very much the tone of the interview. But then also like Tucker Carlson was interviewing her at one point. This was before he made his hard right turn. But she was really like not having that interview. He asked her something about Diet Coke and she looked at him like he was an idiot. I don't know. So yeah, I think the Britney Spears like national news rabbit hole was a big one for me.
I saw another hand. Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah, I'm curious of the characters in this book. Who's your favorite and who do you feel like you most resemble?
Ooh, of the characters in this book, who is your favorite and who do you feel like you most resemble?
I feel like I probably most resemble Kat, the lawyer, because she left and has a somewhat normal life. And also when she's younger and getting famous, she's dealing with a lot of insecurity. And I feel like if I had been in that position, I absolutely would have been a jealous little bitch. I don't know. And then who is my favorite? I mean, I think in some ways I had maybe the most fun writing Liana, who, she played like the best friend who was always overlooked. And I really liked her sense of humor. And she now is kind of like an Instagram influencer who's, hawking
Like a
tummy
sports wife.
teas. Yeah, and stuff like that. And she was like very clear to me in a lot of ways. So I really liked writing her. but I love them all. Oh, more hands.
We have a question right here.
With a baby on the way, what early out show are you most excited to share with your future child?
Oh. With a baby on the way, which early aught show are you most excited to share with your child? Sorry, I'm making it so weird. They asked me to repeat them for the YouTube. I'm like, I have a question for you.
Yes, it's totally original. I came up with it. I think, it's a girl, and I think like watching Gilmore Girls with her probably will be the thing. I used to watch that with my mom, and like that was a huge bonding experience for us. I also know that like any expectations that you have of what your relationship with your child is going to be like probably go out the window at some point. And maybe I'll try to make her watch Gilmore Girls, and she'll be like, no. So.
Oh, right in the back.
What artists are on the playlist for this book?
To steal this question. Which artists are on the playlist for this book? An original question I came up with just now.
Wow, Becca, you are so creative. So there actually is an official playlist for this book that is on Spotify if anybody wants it. Which I think at one point I was doing a giveaway, and I asked people to just comment with their favorite early 2000s song, and then I put them all on a playlist, and it's so good. It's like 3 hours long. So there's everyone on there from, Jessica and Brittany and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC to Vanessa Carlton, some Macy Gray, like, what's that band that did the Come My Lady, Come My Lady? Sugar Ray. No.
Crazy Town.
Crazy Town. But I think there is Sugar Ray on it as well. Don't worry. But then also, there was like another playlist that I would sometimes listen to just when I was writing, when I wanted to get into like the emotions of the characters and stuff. And that one was a little bit moodier, and I don't know, there's some Lana Del Rey on it and stuff.
I was picturing like Sometimes by Britney Spears.
Oh, I mean,
or like I'm not a girl, not yet a woman.
Such an angsty song. Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Oh, right here.
What's on your like TBR, like on your bookshelf or nightstand right now, ready to read that you are excited about?
What is on your TBR, your to be read pile on your nightstand right now that you're excited to read?
So I have been saving Emily Henry's Happy Place for this week because I was like, I want a pub week treat, and I want something that pub week is so full of emotion, and I wanted something that I just knew would be like a beautiful foolproof escape that could totally sweep me up. So I'm really excited about that. And then I really want to read this book called The Christmas Orphans Club.
It's so good.
Yeah. I wish I could get an early copy. But yeah. Yeah, Becca wrote that one. It's available for pre-order already. So.
Oh my God, you're too nice. Any other questions before we wrap up? Oh, right here.
To piggyback off an earlier question, if you were to do something on purpose to stir the pot on live television, what would you do?
If you were to do something on purpose to start controversy on television, what would you do?
I mean, maybe I would, in the middle of doing like a squeaky clean show, start delivering some sort of rant about the way the entertainment industry treats young women. Yeah, what about you?
I mean, at the time, in 2002 to 2005, I mean, I feel like it was really big into, like, pantsing culture.
Oh, yeah.
Like, would I pants Noah?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That would be a good prank.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that was kind of the era of punked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think pantsing is a great idea.
Yeah.
And obviously nobody would get upset if, like, Noah was pants.
No, I wouldn't pants one of the girls.
Right.
Your jeans were too tight, too low.
That's true. Yeah, the element of surprise would be gone by the time you like had wiggled it down 1 inch. Yeah.
You guys are a font of questions. Any last ones? Oh, I shot too high.
Well, there's
Go
one
ahead.
more.
What are you working on next?
Oh, great question. What are you working on next?
I have a book, I think, coming out next year. Oh, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it. My editor's here, and she's giving me nods. Okay, so it's a little bit more of a love story than I've written previously. It takes place over the span of 10 years, exploring that period of time from like your mid-20s to your mid-30s, where all your friends start moving at different, speeds in life, and you're trying to figure out who you are. But it's very loosely inspired by the time I had to walk down the aisle at a friend's wedding with a man who had given my book 1 star on Goodreads.
What an inspiration.
Yes.
Is it dedicated to him, I wonder?
I haven't spoken to him since. Actually, my husband the other night was like, I am concerned that people will think that it's me since it's a love story. It's not my husband.
Fair. Well, thank you all for such wonderful questions. Should I turn it over to you? How do I do this?
And just to say that we're gonna go to Floyd's, the bar a few minutes away after this, and I ordered some pizza there and stuff, and you should all come hang out if you want to.
All right, thank you, Laura and Becca. Laura's going to be signing at the desk near where my colleague is standing. If you wouldn't mind lining up there with your belongings so we could break down the room, we would really appreciate that. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Turn off the stream.